Welcome to Dateline Schools, a presentation of the St. Clair County Regional Educational Service Agency, with your host, Terry Harrington.
Welcome to Dateline Schools. As local schools struggle with a variety of issues, there's one local district that is also working to reinvent itself. The Portage Area School District is working with the International Center for Leadership and Education to create building-specific action plans to improve classroom instruction. So in this edition of Dateline Schools, we'll be talking about the changes coming to Portage schools with Superintendent Ron Wollen. Also joining us is Dr. Paul Ezen from the International Center for Leadership and Education, and also the middle school principal from Portage Central, Mike Palmer, who will give us his building perspective on all these changes. So before we begin our conversation, let's tune in for this edition of Education Update.
Thank you, Terry. A number of local high school students will now be able to earn a diploma and an associate's degree for free through the Blue Water Middle College. The Middle College was created by RESA in partnership with St. Clair County Community College and 4 local high schools. Students who attend Port Huron High School, as well as the high schools in Capac, Memphis, and Yale, can enroll in the Middle College. Students will attend 2 college courses at SC4 their junior year and 3 courses their senior year. Students will also attend school for a 13th year, during which they will take 5 college courses and just 1 high school class. Pete Spencer, who will head the school, said it will benefit the area in a number of ways. In addition to helping families struggling in difficult economic times, it will increase the number of people with post-high school education in the county. The Middle College will begin in the 2011-2012 school year. St. Clair Tech's annual open house was held earlier this month, giving local students and their parents the chance to see all Tech has to offer. Steph provided tours of the building, explained the programs, and answered questions from students. Information was also provided on how students can gain technical skills, academic credit, leadership and employability skills, and college credit while still enrolled in high school. Students in grades 8 through 10 were invited. This year's open house incorporated the celebration of Tech's 35th anniversary year. Several RESA employees got locked up this month in an effort to help the March of Dimes improve the health of babies. Employees took part in Port Huron's annual March of Dimes jail and bail for the 2nd consecutive year. Before the jail and bail, Woodland employees collected pledges during events like the Jailhouse Rock Dance and Break All the Rules Day. They opened up the fund to all RESA employees with a lunch with the inmates at Woodland's Training Table restaurant. $1 from each lunch sold went to the March of Dimes. Special Education Director Cindy Ramo said helping the March of Dimes makes perfect sense, since its mission is so similar to the priorities of Woodland and special education. And finally, it may be hard to think about spring break in the midst of this winter weather, but it'll be here in just a couple of months. Break time for all students in St. Clair County Public School begins on Friday, April 1st. Classes will resume on Monday, April 11th. That's it for this edition of Education Update. I'm Ann Frederick. Terry Harrington and Dateline Schools will return in a minute.
Welcome to St. Clair County, a great place to live, work, and visit. Our firefighters, law enforcement officers, and paramedics are highly trained and pride themselves in responding to assist you in a matter of minutes. However, in a large-scale event, emergency responders may not be able to assist everyone in the first few minutes, hours, or even days. Would you be ready if your power was out for several days? A storm confined you to your home for an extended period of time, if authorities requested you evacuate immediately. The Be Ready for 72 Hours program allows you to take charge before an emergency to assure your family and neighbors remain safe. Simple steps like having a plan and emergency supply kit can make the difference between being in harm's way or being safe and secure. Don't wait until it's too late to prepare. Be ready now, St. Clair County.
Hi, my name is Joe Staley. I'm a graduate of Central Michigan University and currently an offensive lineman for the San Francisco 49ers. Also, I love reading. My mother is a school librarian here in Michigan, and research indicates that students in schools with certified school librarians have higher test scores. When I attended college, I understood the importance of knowing how to research using the internet as well as a library, and school librarians taught me that. Does your student's school have a certified school librarian? If not, ask why.
Welcome back to Dateline Schools. On this edition, we're talking to Dr. Paul Ezen from the International Center for Leadership of Education, and also with the superintendent of the Port Huron Area School District, Ron Wollen. And Ron, the International Center for Leadership and Education is a well-known consultant group nationally and internationally, focusing on school improvement issues by working with administrators, teachers, students, and parents, and of course the communities as well. So Ron, why did the Port Huron Area School District hire this group, and what are you hoping to gain as a result?
Well, when I was appointed superintendent in May, the board charged me with putting a comprehensive plan together for the fall to improve student achievement. With that, I did a lot of research and came across the International Center. And as you mentioned, their reputation, I mean, they have their track record is just unbelievable. And not only in the state, but throughout the United States and nationally. What we wanted to gain from that, 25 years ago, this district was one of the best in the state and relative to test scores in this county. And we need to get back there. We have a good staff, but we have to look at how we're delivering instruction. And so I've got a great team here, and that's really the reason going with the International Center as a partnership.
So what did it take to get this relationship started?
Well, it's interesting. When I went to a superintendent's meeting and talked to Dan DeGrow, the superintendent at RISA, and he indicated, you know what, I know what you're trying to do, Ron, and maybe I could get Bill Daggett in the International Center here. And we were on the fast track because, as I mentioned, I had to have something in the fall that we're going to look at really improving instruction. And we were able to get Bill Daggett and Paul in here, and it was in July, where we had a workshop, and we worked with administrators, business people, teachers, union people, and parents, and started to look at what do we need to do to make the Port Huron Area School District the best it can be from an instructional standpoint and improving achievement for students.
Well, as a district resident and fortunately a graduate of the district, and now I have grandchildren going through the Port Huron Area Schools, you're really not sending the signal that we really need to make major changes in the district from top to bottom, are you?
Terry, what we're looking at, we have an excellent school district, and we have pockets of excellence that we're very competitive not only in this county but the state. But there's areas that we need to focus on. I don't have my head in the sand. There's areas that we need to improve, and we're going to, because it's too important not to.
Now, isn't this more than just spending money to try to improve schools? It's really an investment you're really putting into your staff and the leadership of the district, aren't we?
It sure is, because when you talk about the opportunity for students to have many choices when they graduate, there's that investment, and that comes right back to the community and everything else. And we're in a time, as you know, that not only this district, but this city, they're looking for some positive things to happen. And when you have a very strong city, it's because you've got a very strong school district. And so there's benefits for staff, teachers, and students.
Well, we know teachers are constantly being asked to make sacrifices. Here we are in negotiations again right now, and so that's always there. So how will working with the center impact your teachers' professional life?
I think in a positive way, because you know what, we've got a great staff, we truly do. But what we need to look at is how we're delivering that instruction and take some things off their plate and give them strategies that's going to help them perform in the classroom and help the students.
Okay. Paul, what kind of process is being employed for this endeavor and to see success here in Port Huron?
And I think we're really looking at a long-term relationship with the schools. It's interesting, when we started this process back in July with Ron, I called him up after we had visited for 2 days and said, so what's the multiplier? And he said, all 16 schools. And I was like, okay, that's a lot of work. And he said, yes, and we're capable of doing the work, but the reality was that I was very happy and excited about the fact that it was a district-wide opportunity that they were really looking at. It wasn't just a pocket of a couple of schools that they really want to look at. And so we look at it as an opportunity to work with a district, but looking at each school as an individual school. And we talk about at the center, every school has its own DNA. And so our process is all about finding out what the DNA of each school is and how to move that school forward from where they are to where they really need to be. And it's going to be very different at each one of those schools. We really look at a couple of things: rigor and relevance in the classroom, and bring a process to each one of those schools that creates high expectations for student performance around rigor, and then relevance, bringing some relevance to these kids because it's about their future. We talk a lot about building relationships over a long period of time, teacher to teacher, student to student, teacher to student, teachers and administrators. And we really look at that as part of our whole school reform process. And then we look at, we provide the school, each school, with enough information that we're holding a mirror up to them and going, this is what your school looks like. Now let's plan on where do you want it to go and how are we going to get there. And we, one of our non-negotiables is that you empower a building leadership team to really walk through this process with us. So each one of the buildings has a building leadership team that is working very closely with the principal around needs assessments and strategic plans that we put in place to get them to where they need to be.
Okay. Now we're about to the midway point of the school year. Have you had a chance to meet with each building so far?
Oh yeah, we've completed our what we call the data analysis reports, the needs assessments, and the needs assessments. Our consultants come in to each one of the buildings and they go through a process of interviewing teachers, interviewing students, interviewing the leadership teams, interviewing parents, looking at data, asking some very specific questions related to some of our fundamental beliefs about where education needs to go. And we publish that needs assessment as one small piece of information that will now take into the next part of the phase, which is what we call our individual action plan, strategic planning. And we go, let's look at all of this data, all of this information, all the qualitative and quantitative information that we have, and let's write a very focused strategic plan for improvement over a short period of time and over a long period of time.
Anything surprise you, or anything surprise the people you've talked to as they were talking and say, well, I didn't realize this?
Yeah, I think I've been with the center as a full-time consultant for about 4 years now, and as a full-time employee managing contracts for about 6 months. And nothing really surprised me. Actually, if anything, I was pleasantly surprised at, as Ron stated, the pockets of excellence around the district and the investment. And I will tell you that the teachers in general have been very, very receptive to the process.
What kind of a timeline are we looking at? I've been involved with school improvement process my time here at RESA in various stages and stuff. And no, you can't just say one month we're going to do this, next month we're going to do that,
right.
that type of thing.
Right.
So what are we looking at?
I like to scare principals and tell them that it's a 3 to 5 year process to get anywhere, and that does. They all sit there and go, okay, where am I going to be 3 to 5 years from now? But the reality is, we have leading indicators and lagging indicators that we're going to be looking at, and our leading indicators really are about the qualitative stuff, like setting high expectations, like student leadership in a building, like teachers are really invested in engaging students in learning. And we'll look at that through surveys every year. The lagging indicators always are those student performance indicators that we'd love to have as leading indicators, but that stuff doesn't happen overnight. And a year, 2 years down the road is when you really start to see student performance really increasing, and you can connect it back to those leading indicators.
And what's so different this time? Not that we haven't had innovative opportunities before, but this is comprehensive. It's K-12. All the schools are involved in this, and this is major. And because we need to improve not just one school, the entire district.
I was going to say, that's got to be quite the daunting process, knowing you're working with 16 buildings at once, rather than targeting 1 or 2 maybe needier buildings in another, and then getting them up to speed and then working with the next tier of schools.
Yeah, it is daunting. We have a great pool of consultants that we draw from. We have one consultant working with us in the district that was national runner-up in 2002, I believe, for National Principal of the Year. So she brings a lot of value. She, had an opportunity to turn around a high school, 8-10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago. We have other consultants that are experts on middle school, other consultants that are experts at the elementary level around literacy. So as a team, we bring a lot into the district.
And I had the opportunity to meet the high school and middle consultants, and being a former middle school principal and a former high school principal, they know what they're talking about. It didn't take me long just to sit in and listen that, hey, we're in good hands.
So how many people are you bringing to the table to help the district with this?
Yeah, right now we have a team of 5 consultants and 1 project manager who is acting as a consultant also in a couple of the schools. So what he brings is the project management aspect of it, but also a real flavor for what's going on in the district, because he's working with 3 of the elementary schools. And then I come in as a resource to the district too, and I work a lot with central office.
Okay. Well, it's time for us to take a break, and we come back. Mike Palmer, the principal at Central Middle School in Port Huron, will be joining us to kind of give us that building perspective of this whole plan, so don't go away.
I present to you Algebra 2, Foreign Languages, and finally, Biology. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Me.
Yeah, I'll do it. Me too. Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now. You need them to prepare for college.
Thanks. You believe this guy?
Are you trying to start a wildfire?
Sorry. Pass the honey?
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to Dateline Schools. Joining our conversation today is the superintendent of the Port Huron Area School District, Ron Wollen, and also from the International Center for Leadership and Education, guest is Dr. Paul Ezen. And also joining us on this segment is Mike Palmer, the principal at Central Middle School in Port Huron. And people often see principals mainly as a building manager or supervisor rather than an educational leader. So how will this change in working with the International Center really change this perspective and reality here in Port Huron?
Yeah, in short, really what we look at is coaching and working with principals around becoming focused on instructional leadership. That's leadership that really impacts the classroom. And we find exactly the way you stated it, that management can easily consume a principal's day, and but to get student performance results, you really have to be an instructional leader in the building.
One thing that Dr. Ezen said to us when we started this process is there's a lot of things that you have to do on a daily basis. There's management things, there's, you stated before, but if your focus is going to be on improving instruction and gaining better student achievement, you need to spend more time on instruction. And what it means as a principal is that means I'm going to spend a lot more time in the classrooms working with teachers. Our focus needs to be on improving relationships, increasing rigor, having more relevance to our lessons. And as an example, we recently had a staff member that invited me to come into the classroom and just do an observation. He wanted to try something new. He had just gone through some of the training with the ICLE group, and he wanted me to just give him some feedback. I sat through the class, watched everything, gave him some feedback, and during that time we were able to put together a very good lesson. We were able to put something and ideas for the next 2 or 3 days. And that was to me, that was an example of what my role needs to be and what I need to be doing more of.
And I know, having worked with you when you were assistant principal at Port Huron Northern, that kind of seems to me something that you really thrive on.
Yeah, it's great to get back in the classroom. It really is, just to build more relationships with the kids as well as the teachers.
Now I know you're new at Port Huron Central Middle School, coming down from the high school level, and started this whole process at the same time you're making that change. Are there any changes you've seen happening in your school right now as a result of all this?
Oh, absolutely. So far, we've received our needs assessment back from the ICLE group, so we're starting to do, look at those changes. But I think the big thing has just been the leadership teams that have been formed. We've already begun the training, the train the trainers, and looking at what is a good lesson. What is a lesson that has rigor? What is a lesson that has relevance? And how can I take the lessons that I'm already doing and bump them up? And I think for me, that's been the key to this whole thing is we're doing some good things, but if we just do a little bit more and we all get on the same page, we can be doing some really great things. And that's what we want.
And I guess the really bottom line is we're not expecting our teachers to work harder. not really telling them to work smarter. So what's the message to our teachers?
It's working more effectively, looking at it and saying, all right, we have this time with our students. How can we use that time most effectively so that our kids are learning the most they can and retaining that knowledge? We look at how much is lost when you move from grade to grade, the summertime, and what we're looking at is creating lessons that are relevant, that the kids are thinking, that they're engaged, so they retain that information.
And we also know that for any organization to be successful, everyone has to be on the same page. So how are you going to get your entire staff to buy in? And what happens if you find a couple staff members who really aren't?
You know, and I think for me, that's been one of the best parts of this process. You know, because a lot of times people have an idea of consultants coming in and changing a school, and that really hasn't been our experience at all. We've had the opportunity to really engage our leadership groups. We have Central has a Cougar Council leadership team that's chaired by a teacher that's been around for about the past 7 years. This is a team that's representative, that represents every department, every core area, every grade. We have both of our association representatives from the PHEA that are involved with it. So the change is actually coming from within the building. You know, they use a train-the-trainer approach in which we have key members of that team that are receiving the training from the ICLE, and then coming back and using their knowledge to share with the other teachers. So it's been good because we have control over the process. And from my perspective, that's gone that's really gone very far in just engaging at least our teachers so that they're all on the same process. And I haven't really had a focus on people that weren't a part of it because it is coming from within.
That makes it a lot easier to make the change happen, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Ron, we've been talking, a lot of this is focusing on teachers, administration, the roles there. But what about the other people that make up a school district family, the secretaries, the custodians, the bus drivers, and all the other hundreds of people that it takes to make this whole process work?
You know, Terry, nobody's more important than anybody else. And when we look at this entire district, it's really kind of a family concept. And what I mean by that everybody's talking about how we're delivering instruction and how do we make this district the best it can be. And people are buying into that. And I'm in the buildings quite often. And as I talk to all staff, if there's support or secretaries or building principals or teachers or parents, they're behind us because they can see that the most important thing we do is work with our kids, and we want to give our students the most opportunities, choices when they leave our district.
Mm-hmm. Another community aspect of it is not only the community as a whole, but what about the parents? What are we doing to bring them along too? Because we know it takes parent involvement for kids to be successful.
And I can speak to that a little bit. I think as we get down the road and we're working with principals, we're going to talk about the community connection, and that includes parents and how important that really is. It naturally happens to a much greater extent at the elementary level. Middle school level, it starts to wane a little bit. In high school level, it's pretty tough. But considering economic times and everything that Port Huron and other parts of the country are going through, eliciting the community support and involvement in the schools is paramount. It's one of those things that we work on a little bit later after we start to really work with teachers in the classroom.
And Ryan, I know you work with the superintendents of the county and
yes.
and there's been a real effort in our county to try to get more kids to get to continuing education beyond high school.
Yes.
And then try to get them to stay here as well. What are the other superintendents saying about the process you've engaged in?
You know what, I was just talking, we just had a superintendent's meeting, and in terms of really looking at and not ducking any of these hard questions, how can we, as not only superintendents but in our individual districts, improve, achievement for students and give them the opportunity to be very successful. So I'm excited not only with this endeavor that our partnership with, the International Center, but everybody's focusing on getting these kids, ready for the 21st century. We're already 10 years in the 21st century, but we have to change because what was working before didn't work.
And Mike even mentioned the Port Huron Education Association's involvement a little bit. So what's your reaction to all of this, and what do you see their role being in this?
You know what? Very positive. They have questions, and we answer these questions. And the majority of not only the union but the PHEA leadership, they're supportive because you know what? It's the right thing to do for kids.
Yeah, great. Mike, what kind of measures of success are you looking for, and how are you going to know if this is successful? And let's take it from your building perspective, and I'll ask Paul from a district perspective of where we're going with this.
From a building perspective, we know we're a good building, but we want it to be a great building. Obviously, looking at achievement scores is going to be something that's important. The state rankings are always something that's on people's minds, and it's always something that parents will use when they look at it and they're judging a school. But we're also looking at our needs assessment. And specifically within that needs assessment, what are some areas that we need to improve upon and how we address each of those areas. So I'm looking at, are we addressing each of those areas? What are we doing in terms of the kids' perspective? Are we going and doing other perception surveys to find out what the kids want? And I think for me, I'm looking at, I want a building that we have a collaborative culture where, what I did with my teacher and going in and offering feedback, ultimately I want my other teachers to be able to go in and give feedback and observe other teachers' lessons too.
Yeah, and I just think that going along with that, it really is all about rigor, relevance, and relationships. And we look at both qualitative and quantitative ways of collecting that data, and we really believe that relationships comes first. And that when you build those strong relationships, teacher to teacher, with your building leadership team, or with the kids, that the rest of the stuff can follow naturally.
One thing I still keep hearing, we keep still kind of focusing on one test. That's our measure of success. But it takes a lot more than that to measure the success and the value of a school, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why we bring a lot of different tools into play when we go through the process with any school or school district. And we look at we have, we were talking earlier about what about everybody else on staff. And we have what's called the We Lead survey. And the We Lead survey goes out to everybody in the building, custodians, cafeteria workers, secretaries, whatever. And it gives us a more accurate perception of how they really feel about the building and what's going on in the building and about the leadership in the building.
I know earlier in the segment we talked a little bit about the timeline and that you're using, and we're looking at a 3 to 5 year process here. So year one, we're getting a lot of the the data, the baselines, and all that kind of stuff. What are we expecting for the second school year?
Second school year is really all about seeing a lot of this stuff in the classroom, and I think Mike can speak to what he has for expectations around that. But we're doing a lot of aggressive training this year and hopefully next summer. And what we would hope is we start to see greater pockets of integration of what we call Quadrant D Lessons, real active and engaging lessons in the classroom.
Yeah, when we had our consultant come out, they spent an entire day going around in just about every classroom in our building. And a lot of what they seen was good quality Quadrant A work that was being done by the students. And one thing that we're looking for is to do those observations and see more Quadrant D lessons, moments. The type of things that you're seeing increase rigor, that you're seeing increased relevancy to what the kids are doing in the classroom. Because it's ultimately about what are the kids learning within the classes.
And some of these early successes, I mean, as I look at the perspective of the district, everybody's talking about how we deliver instruction. And talking about being on the same page and what's really going to engage our students.
And Ron, we need to wrap up the program. If the community would like more information about what's going on and maybe even become more involved, what can they do or what should they do at this point?
I've just established a superintendent's weekly report that comes out on our webpage, and I have a link on that, and they can just send it right to me. Any questions, and contact me.
And that web address is phasd.us, right?
Yes, correct.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Dateline Schools. A lot of great information, and I know we're going to be talking about this a lot more as time progresses, so looking forward to that. We want to thank you for joining us on this edition of Dateline Schools.